I can almost guarantee there is probably something to learn from this video. This video will help you with 6 easy to follow tips whether you're an existing Tesla owner or you're just planning on joining the club. So who am I to provide these tips? Well, I've been a happy owner of my Tesla Model 3 for pretty much 3 years now. Admittedly, there was a small learning curve at first, mostly because it's simply different to the norm. But hand on heart, day to day, this is probably one of the easiest cars to own and operate, and one that you could confidently recommend to your grandparents, with a few pointers of course. But over my time of ownership, there are habits you can most definitely instill from the get-go to help you with, say, range anxiety. And crucially, there are methods to ensure your Tesla Model 3 or Model Y battery health can be prolonged. Something all Tesla EV owners should want to know.
I'm all ears.
Therefore, these are 6 simple and easy tips you don't get taught by Tesla, but you should definitely know if you're a Tesla owner or even an aspiring Tesla Model 3 owner. I think you get the picture by now of what you're getting into. Right, lots to get through, so please do hit that like button to show me some virtual love and support for Tesla and EVs. Hit that subscribe button so you can continue this EV journey with me. And finally, just hit that notification bell. Right folks, let's fully get into it. Kickstarting the video, this first tip is probably the most beneficial one for new owners of either the Tesla Model 3 or Model Y, and this tip is to do with dispersing any sort of range anxiety concerns you may have, simply by having the right settings on the screen and understanding the information behind what's being displayed. For example, I always advocate for displaying your battery capacity as a percentage rather than miles, as it is definitive. For example, if it's at half capacity, it's 50% remaining. This is the same as how your iPhone or your smartphone displays its battery today. It's as a percentage rather than talk time remaining. Think about it. That's because the power remaining is definitive, but how you use that power over a course of the next journey or so is also subjective to, say, driving behavior, the weather, elevation changes, etc. This isn't just a Tesla thing, but actually all these inputs affect the range of all vehicles on the road today. Not to mention, if you were to stick with miles remaining and you watched it all the way to 0, I know it's like watching paint dry, strictly speaking, you'd see it fall faster than percentage remaining. It's very much a psychological behavior, but trust me, changing it to percentage remaining will help you come to terms that you're not rapidly losing mileage, even though you're not racking up the miles, if that makes sense. Sticking with the range anxiety point, if your range is not where you'd expect, or you feel the accuracy is still off, don't worry, your Tesla probably isn't a dud. Battery faults are rare, and you have an 8-year battery warranty that's subject to mileage limits. The mileage displayed at 100% is taken from the US EPA rated range equivalent. So for those in Europe or the UK like me, this will mean a display range being slightly lower than anticipated, but it will also mean that you should be more representative of real world conditions. But remember, you use percentage remaining now and not miles remaining, right?
You evil genius.
But if that had you concerned at first, do not fear that you have a dud. This probably explains that discrepancy. Final point on the range anxiety tips, the accuracy of your navigation should really be accurate from the get-go. You wouldn't believe the algorithm and what it takes into account. It does wind direction, speed, weather, traffic, all sorts really. That said, if it seems to be off and you've removed your aero covers from the 18-inch Model 3 rims, and that's going to be the 19-inch for the Model Y, this will have an aero effect on the vehicle's efficiency, which is then going to lower your range prediction, but also the accuracy of the prediction in the first place. So this is where having the right setting in the car will improve that prediction. Once you've made this change by the settings on the screen, the Tesla app and the main display will also then show the car now without the wheel covers like mine currently does. The second tip, and I'm sticking with the aero wheel removal, if you think I'm talking jargon, this will make sense of what this is all about.
Awkward.
Every driver today has curbed a wheel at some point. Me and my wife are pretty good these days, but at the beginning of our ownership, my 18-inch wheels got beaten pretty bad. And that's mostly on the driver, and I'm not deflating the blame here, but the protruding rim design and the lack of the tyre wall bulge makes scuffing your alloys against curbs pretty damn easy to do. Even with competent drivers, accidents do unfortunately happen. If you're thinking, why have Tesla done this? I believe it's designed that way so the aero covers that come as standard, they can physically click into the rim of the wheel for that smooth and slick, efficient airflow, and thus improving the range. So whilst it can improve your range by up to 10%, whether you utilize the aero covers or replace it with an aero wheel kit like so, the rim edge is forever exposed and it's easy to curb. And that is why I recommend getting protection for your Tesla Model 3 alloys. And if you opt for the 18-inch wheels, this is the free tyre choice in the configurator, and so I expect it's probably the most popular option for that reason, and the range boost, I guess. So my solution to these Kerb Rash enhancing rims is third-party wheel covers like this. I've included a dedicated video in the top right of the screen now. I've done many videos on these wheel covers before, and I'll pop it in the video description below if you can't find it on the screen. But these black wheel trims that you can see now are a set of third-party wheel covers, and you can buy a variety of different ones from different retailers. But what I like most about these is that the wheel covers are unique and yet incredibly affordable now. It acts as a buffer to your alloys, as these covers give an inch or so of protection over that part that sticks out the most. So if you like the look of these, you're now starting to think, well, what's the catch? What happens if you damage the covers instead? That's already happened to me. I've been there, I've done it still. It's super simple actually. You simply just buy a single cover, remove the old one and replace the Kerb one for under £50 or $50. Anyone with a few brain cells and hands can actually swap them over in just a couple of minutes, mitigating any need for you to call out and pay for someone to come and fix your alloy rims. And therefore, it's not only going to be then a protector, it's potentially saving you some cash and time set aside really for any repairs that you would have had to have if you didn't have that protection. Tip number 3, and it's related to tip number 1 actually, if your car is showing higher than anticipated levels of degradation, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to ring the alarm bells. You can help your car and its battery management system, which is also known as BMS, recover some of those anticipated losses. Simply by driving your car battery down to around the 20% level, leave it for around 4 hours, ideally overnight, and make sure your Sentry mode is off. It should then enter into a deep sleep mode. Then you can charge it all the way back to 100%, taking every kilowatt hour of electricity possible. You may then see the car reflect a slightly higher range, and that's due to the BMS balancing the cells better. Now, if you then notice that your Tesla won't let you get to 100%, there's also another tip to tackle that. Leave your Tesla on a low state of charge for 4 to 6 hours, again at below 50%. Do try aim for around the 20% level though. But again, make sure Sentry mode is off. We do want that sleep state again, and do this a number of times every year, even once a month, if you don't already do this normally. This will just help keep the calibration in tip-top shape over time, and if you are experiencing issues, do seek help by submitting a ticket via your Tesla app. Tip number 4 can save you a lot of time at superchargers, and so this is going to be relevant to those new and maybe existing owners too if you don't use superchargers very often. Whenever you plan to charge, make sure you navigate to a supercharger, because this will give you a quicker charging speed, and that will mean a shorter charging stop for you. So literally win-win. And the reason why it's quicker is that the car will precondition the battery to the optimum temperature, ensuring that it's going to be in that best state to accept those higher charging speeds before you arrive. And this amazing software feature used to be exclusive to just Tesla superchargers, but an over-the-air update now enables this Tesla feature to be used at some non-Tesla rapid chargers, not all of them, but I believe Ionity is one of them that does work. Using the navigation will give you the best possible charging session for speed and time, and when you're close to the supercharger, the screen will actually tell you when it's preconditioning, as the navigation will know your distance and when it's best to start optimizing. Plus, it knows if it can extract additional energy to optimize the charging speed before you reach the charging destination. The 5th tip is more for when you're planning to leave your car for a long period of time, so that's mostly going to be useful if you're going on holiday for a long period of time without your Model 3 or Model Y. If you are, you should take into account that if the car is not plugged into a charger, as a guide, your car will roughly use 1% of battery per day. Also, don't forget to manually turn off Sentry mode, and do not check the phone app, as this will lead to a more severe usage if so. Another one to look out for is cabin heat protection. You also want to turn that off. However, it's useful to know a rough guide, and I've actually experienced much lower energy consumption over a week of no usage than the guide stated. But 1% is a good guide to work with, and you can take a look at the video on the screen now for a full lowdown as a live example if you really wanted to. Ultimately, if you can, it is more ideal to have it sit around the 80% mark or lower, and then have it plugged in for the duration of that time that it's not being used, and then the car can just suckle any energy wherever it wants to. Swiftly moving on to my final point. charging costs, particularly home charging if you own an EV, some utility providers will allow you access to exclusive rates that are not available to the general public, and this effectively delivers you a much better rate overnight. So when you charge your car, it's usually heavily discounted for a number of hours. Now if you're savvy like me, you can also use this time to charge other devices around the house. For example, I set the dishwasher to come on during the night, and that's because the day rate of electricity is then higher than normal. With today's electricity prices, it's not always a straightforward choice to use a tariff like this as what it used to be, so do weigh it up with how much energy you use during the day. And to help, I did a video on home charging to give you an idea of what an EV tariff compared to a standard fixed price could be, as you could be paying something like 3 times less than what you do to charge your car. It's definitely worth some research to see if it works out better for your circumstances, but just having the EV effectively opens up tariffs not available to the general public, so it's always worth considering if you can save some extra money along the way. So to conclude, these are my reasonable tips that have helped me get the most from my electric car. Hopefully this will help you get most out of your Tesla, whether it's coming to terms with how to display range in your Tesla or how to improve your battery health. It's these small and little subtle tips that will help you appreciate and just take your ownership experience to another level. So what do you guys think? Did you know all of these tips? I definitely reckon there's a few more tips that I didn't mention that do deserve a mention. So if there is something that you do know and I didn't mention it, don't hesitate to drop it in the comments below. If you're not sure what to comment and you just want to let me know you got this far in the video, you could simply comment Kerb Rider and I'll give you a cheeky thumbs up for the support. If you've not already done so, please hit the like button, subscribe and share the video with your friends and family or any group that may find it beneficial. You think it's been great, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.